King George III and Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz became parents of a surprisingly large number of children, as many as 15. Princes who wanted to take their daughter's hand were always refused by the king and queen. In their palace, which, because of boredom, they began to call a convent, they kept women. Due to the lack of opportunity to start an independent life, the princesses managed to cause a lot of trouble within the walls of the palace. Let's take a closer look at the stories of the 6 daughters of King George III. Charlotte. After 3 sons were born, the royal couple happily had a daughter named Charlotte, to whom they awarded the title of royal princess as the eldest daughter. She liked the French language, as well as reading poems and poems. Nevertheless, she did not share her parents' passion for music, dancing, and was disgusted to participate in the performances that they arranged to introduce their children to the public. Charlotte was constantly compared to her younger sister Augusta, who was considered extremely beautiful, while Charlotte did not have such attractiveness. When the daughters grew up to adolescence, marriage proposals from European princes began to arrive. Britain played a key role in Europe. The girls were considered an outstanding option for creating a dynasty, but the king and queen could not come to terms with the idea of parting with their precious daughters and consistently rejected each applicant. In the 18th century, royal brides went to live in their husband's country, and such journeys were both dangerous and lengthy. Finally, Charlotte received permission to marry Frederick, Crown Prince of Württemberg, although she was already 31 years old, a rather unusual age for a bride in the XVII century. However, among all her sisters, it was she who got married at a very young age. In 1800, Napoleon's army occupied Württemberg, and the royal family members fled to Vienna. Meanwhile, Frederick entered into negotiations with the French emperor, and in exchange for the provision of troops, he was recognized as the King of Württemberg. Such an alliance made him an enemy of his father-in-law, King George III. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, the Congress of Vienna confirmed Frederick's title as King of Württemberg. However, he passed away the following year. Charlotte continued her life in the Ludwigsburg Palace, where she lived with her stepson. She received visits from many of her brothers and sisters, and she was entrusted with the honor of being the godmother of the future Queen Victoria, her niece. However, in 1828, at the age of 62, Charlotte passed away. August Sophia. The princess received a traditional female education, which includes the skills of etiquette, music, dance, and art. Augusta was recognized as the most beautiful of all the older sisters, but she showed considerable shyness. She had a particularly close relationship with her older brother Wilhelm and even wore an anchor pendant in his honor while he was serving in the Navy. Upon reaching the age of 17, the attractive princess became a desirable match in the royal marriage market, but George III always rejected all offers. However, after the king suffered an attack of illness, the question of his daughter's marriage faded into the background. Later, Augusta began a secret relationship with Sir Brent Spencer, an officer in the Irish Army. In 1812, at the age of 44, she asked permission to marry her brother George, who was now Prince Regent. Although there are no official records of the marriage, there is an assumption that Augusta married secretly. In 1840, at the age of 71, Augusta died. Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a person of cheerful disposition, enjoying the special affection of her mother. She was also the object of anxious thoughts of the Queen, who was afraid to let her marry, although Elizabeth dreamed of her own family. In addition, she had an artistic talent and created several books of prints in support of charity. She also shared her father's interests in agriculture and even established her own farm. An important aspect of her personality was her excellent sense of humor, and she kept a huge collection of jokes and witty remarks. At the age of 38, Elizabeth received an offer from the exiled Duke of Orleans, who later became King of the French under the name Louis Philippe I. She was actually going to agree to this offer, however. Her mother insisted that she refuse. During the ball, when she was 44 years old, she noticed Prince Frederick VI in his magnificent military uniform. She whispered to her friend that if he is not married, then she is ready to marry him. 4 years later, he finally proposed to her. Once again, Elizabeth's mother expressed her fears, fearing that her daughter would leave for Germany. but Elizabeth insisted that, at the age of 48, she was finally allowed to leave her parents' house. Having gained her freedom, Elizabeth enjoyed the distance from the British court and her domineering mother. She founded a kindergarten and a school for the children of working mothers. She was bitter because she did not have her own children, but she took care of the children in her school with love. Elizabeth passed away in 1840 when she was 69 years old and was buried in Hamburg. Maria. She was considered the most beautiful of all the daughters of George and Charlotte, and her character was complaisant and calm. At the age of 16, she was given the opportunity to try dancing for the first time at a ball held in honor of her father's birthday. At the age of 20, she fell in love with Prince Frederick, the son of William V of Orange, but the couple was not allowed to marry, as the king insisted that her older sisters should marry first. 3 years later, Frederick died of an infection while serving in the army, and grief for him led Maria into a state of deep mourning. She was allowed to go through an official period of mourning. Approaching the age of 40, Mary got tired of living under the care of her mother, and she persuaded the Queen to allow her to marry her cousin, the Duke of Gloucester, who was the same age as her. Maria died in 1857, having lived to the age of 81. Sophia was raised in the company of her sisters Maria and Amelia. The Queen attached great importance to education and allowed her daughters to participate in sports along with their brothers. She also took them to the theater for musical performances. When she turned 14, Sophia made her debut at court for the first time in honor of her father's birthday. When Prince George became regent, he tried to achieve some freedom for his sisters, but their mother reacted with outrage. The only men with whom the princesses had the opportunity to communicate were courtiers, and Sophia fell in love with one of them. This man was the king's master of the horse, Major General Thomas Garth. Despite the fact that he was 33 years older than her, Sophia could not restrain her feelings when she was next to him. At the age of 23, Sophia disappeared for several months, and then Thomas Garth retired to take care of his newborn son, whose mother was not known. There were different versions. One implied that Sophia could have given birth to Thomas in secret, while other rumors indicated that the child may have been the result of rape by her own brother Ernst. In any case, Sophia's shameful reputation destroyed her chances of marriage. When she was 41, her mother passed away, and only after that she finally found some freedom. However, after a few years, she began to show vision problems, as well as dizziness and clouding of the mind. Sophia passed away in 1848, when she was 70 years old. Amelia was the 15th and last child, and she was surrounded with care and attention, making her a favorite of her father. From early childhood, when meeting new people, she immediately stretched out her little hand to be kissed. When Amelia was only 5 years old, her father almost became incapacitated due to mental disorders. Amelia stood out among all the princesses for her restlessness and quick temper, but also her charm, spirituality, generosity, and skill dazzled. Despite this, she had fragile health. When she turned 15, she began to experience pain in the knee joint, and in the same year, the first symptoms of tuberculosis appeared. At the age of 19, during one of the medical resorts on the sea, Amelia fell in love with the horse guardsman Charles Fitzroy, who was 40 years old. Knowing that she would never be able to marry him, Amelia, however, confessed to her brother Frederick that she considered herself his wife, often signing letters with the initials Amelia Fitzroy. At the age of 25, she fell ill with measles, and she was sent to the seashore along with her close sister Maria, who took care of her for almost 2 years. But in the end, the disease deprived her of strength, and Amelia died before reaching the age of 27. She left all her possessions to Charles Fitzroy. Her death further aggravated the mental disorder of King George III. He often repeated her name and claimed that Amelia remained in Hanover, living with her large family, where she would never grow old and would always remain healthy. What is your opinion about the daughters of King George III?